Hi, this is Debbie from Project 39. In this series, I'm going to show you how to make a mini album, and this first part is going to be about making a mini album cover. I'm going to quickly show you what materials I use. If you'd like to know where I source the materials, please leave a note in the description box and I'll get back to you. First thing I use is a scoreboard. This is the We Are Memory Keepers scoreboard. This folds in half to make it portable. You just have to watch when you're scoring right here at this mark. I do not use this tool that comes with it. I generally will use either a stylus or my Cricut scoring tool. All right, other materials. I use chipboard. Generally use the medium weight chipboard. For most of my projects, I'll use the 8.5 by 11. I also use 65-pound weight cardstock. 95% of the time I'll use black because it's a good standard color. Sometimes I'll use white or beige, but 95% of the time it's going to be black. All right, let's talk about adhesives. People either love or hate their adhesives. So these are generally what I'll grab when I make my mini album. The advanced tape glide, or the ATG, I get refills of that. And this is sort of like a filler adhesive. You'll see how I use that in the following video. Scor-tape is the primary adhesive, at least the tape. I use the 1/4 inch and the 3/8 inch. And I'll also use art glitter glue. I buy the large bottle and refill it into the smaller bottle. Miscellaneous tools, Bonefolders. I'll talk a little bit about my Bonefolders as we go on. Need a craft knife, always keep a sharp blade, and various scissors. So those are the tools that we need. Let's get started. 6.5 by 6.5. Then you're going to need to grab some adhesive. In this case, I use scor-tape. Some people like to use ATG, and some people like to use art glitter glue. It's not for glitter, it's just a good strong glue. And there's a plethora of other adhesives out there. This is just what I have on hand and what I use. So I put the scor-tape on all 4 sides of the book. I'm sorry. I put the scor-tape on all 4 sides of the chipboard. All right, the material the cover is going to be made of is cardstock. Again, it's the 65-pound weight cardstock. I have 2 pieces here. I put scor-tape along one edge, one of the 8.5 inch sides of it. I burnished it really well with a Bonefolder to make sure it adheres very well. I'm peeling that off. And I'm going to simply take one piece, put it on the other. Some people like to use their scoreboards or put it on the edge of your work table, or if you have a mat that's got the lines on it, you could use that. But I'm just adhering because I've done it for a while. So there we go. Now this is going to be too big because you're going to want 1/4 inch in between these pieces, but still you've got about 3 inches, and I really only need about 1 inch, so I'm going to take it and cut off about 1.5 inches on each side. Okay, now we're going to be adhering the spine piece to my cover cardstock. So I'm taking off the scor-tape, and again, the more you burnish it, the easier it is to take off. I'm going to use my ATG just to add a little more adhesive because I don't want it to bubble up. It might be overkill. Now I had put a white chalk line on here just so you could see where I'm putting it. So here's the thing. When you put these 2 pieces together, the actual seam is 3/8 of an inch, because that's how wide the scor-tape was, to the left of the edge of this paper. it's not that super clear. I should have probably not used black, but anyhow, here is the right edge of the paper that you could see. On the other side of it is where the edge of the paper is. That's where I want the center of this to be. So even though you've got this line here, I'm going to go and center it right about here. Now, it's not that critical because you're going to mostly cover it. I'm just a little crazy when it comes to that. So anyhow, we put that down. Some people now just eyeball 1/4 of an inch. Some measure, some put 2 pieces of chipboard together and say, okay, that's where it needs to be for the next one. I do take a 1/4 inch piece of score tape and put it on both sides of that chipboard. I go a little beyond it because it helps it adhere a little bit later, you'll see. Oops. That's right, it won't hurt anything. Try to burnish it now, because once you get the next piece on, it's a little more difficult to burnish. All right, that's done. Some people use the 1/8 inch to put between, but I use the 1/4 inch. All right, and now here is a 6.5 by 6.5 piece of chipboard. I'm taking off the score tape, and I'm going to again use my ATG. Some people would use glue here, some would use more score tape, some don't use anything at all, but I just like to be sure that the paper's not going to bubble up. So now I have this white chalk line and the side of the score tape to make sure that this is. And I also want to line it up with the bottom here. So there we go with one. And there we go with 2. Now I'm going to turn this over and burnish really well. You can use something like this to burnish. You can use something like this. You can use this. I just try not to push too hard because I don't want any indentations, although it is most likely that I am going to cover this whole thing so you won't see it. All right, so now we have that. Now the next thing I'm going to do is take a stylus or my Bonefolder or something and go around the edges. Now I have this little Cricut stylus that you use in the Cricut machine to score, and I love this thing. So just go slowly along the sides, push down to score it, and this will help the paper fold where you want it to fold and not where it wants to fold. Some people like to do this, some people don't. It's just how I do it. After you do it a couple of times, you'll come up with your own process. You'll find what works good for you. All right, so that's done. Now, the other part of this is there's different ways of folding the corners. Some have a flat fold, like they would just cut off this piece and fold this up and this over. I like to cut on a diagonal. When you cut, you have to make sure that you stay about 1/8 of an inch away from the corner. It's not the worst thing in the world. If you happen to cut too close, you can just take a Sharpie or black something and fill in the corner and nobody will see. Most likely you're going to cover that with pattern paper anyhow. But now I'm going to grab scissors and cut the corners. You could do it with an X-Acto. There's a thing called a perfect trim ruler. I actually made a triangle myself to do it. See, that might be a little too close, but it'll be fine. But anyhow, that's that. All right, now the next thing is, some people go really crazy with tape at this point. I don't go so crazy. I'm going to lift up the corners of the score tape here, though. And just fold it. I'm going to put, and you could put 1/4 inch, you could put 3/8, whatever you want. The thing is, once you fold over the excess on this and put the pattern paper on top, it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to be pretty sturdy. So I think we go too crazy with tape, but when you're first starting out, you probably want to make sure you use a good strong tape, because that will hide a lot of evils or a lot of mistakes if you did not cut the paper right. If you didn't fold it right, the tape's going to hold everything in place. So anyhow, I guess I'll pull this off now. And so what I do is I take ATG and cover this side. As you can see, it is not perfectly neat. It's just to give a little more stickiness and hold everything together. And now I will start at the top. I'm going to peel this off too. What I also do as an extra precaution is add a little bit of glue on this side. Now you could do this at the same time, but it depends on how fast I work. And some people like to put glue here. If you want to, you can. I don't think it makes much difference. And then we're going to fold this towards you. Of course, you want to get as close. We've scored it, so it's going to fold fairly easily. Push it down. You just want to make sure, and you want to pull it. You're going to work it here. You don't just fold it and let it go. You have to take control of the paper. I usually try to put it down here in the center, here on the side, the right side, here on the left side, and then fold everything towards me. So if there are any, you saw a little blip there, I just score it and lay it flat. So there's that. Now I'm going to lift this up to make sure this piece, turn it around, pull this towards me, hold it really well, do the center, do the sides. If I do the center and then the right side and work my fingers to where the 1/4 inch gap is, if it bubbles up at all, it can bubble in that gap, and that's not a big deal because you're going to need some extra room in that gap anyhow. So anyhow, burnish the heck out of it and make sure it's nice and sturdy. Okay, now, so I have like 3 bone folders going at a time. This one I like, it's by Recollections. It's just ergonomic for me. There's a million of them out there. I think this one's a Martha Stewart one. Yeah, it's a Martha Stewart one. This one's good as well. When I'm doing the book cover, I'll use these 2. This is an old one I got at Michael's years ago. I don't know if they still have it. They might. I use this when I'm folding in the corners. So I'm going to come in from the top and push that down. So come in from the bottom and push that down. You want this part to be in a little a little smaller, if that makes sense, than this part. And you'll see why when we fold it over. So I'm going to turn this over. And there's still some glue there. It's, you know, it's still going to be sticky. That's why sometimes I just put the glue down right before I fold it. I'm going to peel this off. I'm going to fold this, make sure it's got a nice crisp fold. Pull it, tug it, do whatever I need to do. And then finally put it down and burnish real well. I even take my Bonefolder and push it down on the corner just so it can be as flat as possible. So again, we'll take off this. I'm going to add a little bit of art glitter glue just to make sure it stays. Just because I like, I don't know, I'm crazy that way. Just because I like this part of it to stick. So I'll pull it, tug it a little, push it down, burnish it. And push down the corners, holding that. Now I also like to take this and using, you know, make sure you use the straight edge, not the curved part of it. Just go along the top of the book, the sides of the book, and flip it over. I just feel like it makes it a little more crisp and clean. Could be just in my mind, but that's what I do. All right, now we have the album cover. The next part in the series is how to make the binding system, and after that is how to make some simple pages. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you know when the next video is ready. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.